How much does your watch cost? Most people think that to get a good watch, you need to spend a month's rent or even more, but this is wrong. It's 2026. You'll find decent watches that cost less than a meal in a fancy restaurant. And today, I will show you 12 of those watches. Number 12. Casio F91W. The Casio F91W costs approximately $18 to $25. The module inside has been essentially unchanged since 1989. The case is resin, the bio-based version as of recent production runs. It weighs 21 grams. The battery lasts 7 years. The water resistance is 30 meters. Casio shipped 2.3 million units in 2026, up from the previous year. The US Marine Corps still lists it as an acceptable timepiece. Students at MIT and Imperial College wear it alongside people wearing watches that cost 100 times more. James Murdoch was photographed wearing one. None of this is because of marketing. Casio essentially stopped marketing the F91W decades ago. The watch's continued existence is a result of a community that keeps recommending it to other people who then recommend it to someone else. There is no campaign behind this. The object earned it. At $200, the category you are entering offers a choice between paying for the movement, paying for the finishing, or paying for the brand. The F91W shows that sometimes none of those things are the point. Sometimes the point is a watch that works for 7 years without asking you for anything. That argument has been made for 35 years and has not yet been convincingly answered, from the timeless to the feature-dense. The next watch packs more functionality than anything that costs 50 times more. Number 11. Casio AE1200WH Royal. The Casio AE1200WH retails for around $25. The watch community calls it the Royale because it looks from a certain angle like it borrowed some aesthetic inspiration from a reference it is not worth naming. The resemblance is not the reason to buy it. One of the reasons to buy it is a 10-year battery, world time coverage for 29 time zones with a 2-4-hour local city display, dual time, countdown timer, 5 daily alarms, stopwatch accurate to 1/100th of a second, LED backlight, 100 meter water resistance for $25. The watch at $2,000 that you see advertised on every travel website, the one with the GMT hand and the ceramic bezel, does not have a 10-year battery. It does not have 29 time zone coverage. It tracks 2 time zones. The AE1200WH tracks 29. The AE1200WH has 5 alarms. The luxury GMT watch has one. This is not an argument that the AE1200WH is a better watch than a Swiss GMT at $2,000. It is not. The Swiss watch wins on movement architecture, case finishing, dial quality, brand heritage, and secondary market value. The question is whether you are buying a watch for those reasons or whether you are buying a watch because you travel between time zones and want to know what time it is in multiple cities simultaneously. If it is the second question, the $25 Casio answers it better than the $2,000 watch. The collector who wears both has answered the question of what each watch is actually for. The AE1200WH has settled the functional argument permanently, and the watch world simply does not talk about it enough. From digital function to analog reliability, Timex has been building the honest everyday watch since before most other brands existed. Number 10. Timex Weekender and Expedition. Timex has been making watches since 1854. The brand has survived 2 world wars, the quartz revolution, and 3 decades of the luxury watch boom. It did all of this by making watches that were honest about what they were: reliable, affordable, and designed for people who needed a watch, not a statement. The Weekender is a 40mm brass case, quartz movement, Indiglo backlight, soft fabric NATO strap, 30-meter water resistance. It retails for $40 to $75. Every review of this watch eventually lands on the same conclusion. It does exactly what it promises and nothing else, and that is the precise definition of value. The Indiglo backlight is underrated. Most watches at this price point have a pinhole LED that illuminates approximately 1 corner of the dial. The Indiglo system electroilluminates the entire dial from behind, making every marker readable simultaneously in total darkness. Timex developed this in-house in 1992, and it remains, more than 30 years later, One of the most practically useful backlight systems in the entire watch market at any price. The Expedition moves the same formula into a field watch profile. Arabic numerals, brushed case, 50-meter water resistance, a slightly roomier diameter. It reads like something that has been worn on a hiking trail and will go back there tomorrow without complaint. What both watches share is a specific quality that is harder to achieve than it sounds. They look better on the wrist than they do in the product photograph. Most watches at this price point are designed to photograph well for the listing image. Timex is designed to wear well. The difference shows up at 6 months of daily use when the strap has softened and the case has settled and the watch feels like it belongs. That is not a feature you can list in the specifications. It is the result of 170 years of making watches for people who wear them rather than collect them. From analog simplicity to the most functional dive watch at any price under $60. Number 9. Casio MDV 106 Duro. The Casio Duro MDV 106 retails for around $55. It has 200-meter water resistance rating, which means the watch has been pressure tested to a standard that matches dive watches costing $500 to $1,000 at the entry professional tier. The quartz movement inside is accurate to within 15 seconds per month, which is standard Casio quartz performance. It is reliable and honest. The unidirectional bezel clicks cleanly through its positions. The lume on the markers and hands is sufficient for reading in the dark. The bracelet is stainless steel with a folding clasp. The case is 44 millimeters, which wears large on smaller wrists, and that is the one limitation worth knowing before you order it. The MDV 106 is not trying to be beautiful. The dial is legible and functional. The case has no flourishes. The bracelet has no polished accents. Everything about the watch communicates that the people who designed it were thinking about function rather than how it would photograph on a watch review website. This is unusual at any price. Across every forum that discusses affordable watches, the MDV 106 is the single most consistent recommendation for anyone who simply needs a watch that will not fail near water. Not the most stylish answer. Not the most interesting movement story. The most reliable answer to the only question that matters if you are asking it. What watch can I wear that will not die in the ocean? The answer is a $55 Casio. Every time, on every forum, without argument. From the indestructible to the intriguing, Vostok does not care about your price expectations. Number 8. Vostok Amphibia. The Vostok Amphibia was built for the Soviet military in the 60s. The design brief was specific. A watch that could be worn by divers, soldiers, and engineers who needed something that worked in extreme conditions without specialist maintenance. The USSR was not sending its divers to Swiss boutiques for servicing. The watch needed to be self-sufficient. What Vostok built to meet that brief is still in production in exactly the same factory in Chistopol, Russia, by mostly the same production methods. The case design has an unusual feature. The case back is constructed so that increasing water pressure at depth actually seals the watch more tightly. The crystal design cooperates with the case to resist deformation under pressure. These are engineering solutions from the Cold War that Soviet watchmakers arrived at independently of the Swiss, without access to Swiss patents, under conditions of industrial isolation. The solutions work. In 2026, the Vostok Amphibia retails for between $60 and $100, depending on the dial variant. The movement inside, the 2416B caliber, runs in the range of -20 to +60 seconds per day. That is not chronometer accuracy. It is the accuracy of a purpose-built tool from a factory that was not making these watches to be admired. They were making them to work. The wide accuracy range is not a defect. It is the factory reporting honestly. This is what an honest spec sheet looks like when the manufacturer has no marketing reason to overclaim. The dial variants are genuinely eccentric. Some of them look like they were designed by a confident engineer who had never consulted a design team. That is approximately accurate. There was no design team in the conventional sense. There was a specification and there was a factory. Reddit's watch communities describe the Amphibia as the most honest watch they own. Not because it is beautiful, some of the dial variants are genuinely odd. Because it was designed to a real brief by engineers who had no incentive to compromise on function for the sake of marketability. That authenticity, in a market where every object has a story built around it, is harder to find than people expect. From Soviet engineering to the most controversial entry on this list, and the one with the most interesting movement argument. Number 7. Invicta Pro Diver 8926. OB Invicta as a brand has a reputation in the watch community. A reputation for phantom MSRPs, for perpetual 90% off sales, for marketing practices that make serious collectors wince. All of that is documented and accurate. Here is the separate question. What is inside the Invicta Pro Diver 8926 OB? The answer is a Seiko NH35A, automatic movement. This is the same movement Seiko puts in the Seiko 5 Sport SRPD. The same movement found in entry-level Tissot, Hamilton, and Longines watches that retail for 3 to 4 times as much. Hacking seconds, hand winding, 4-1, hour power reserve, 24 joules. The movement is a real automatic caliber built by a genuine manufacturer with decades of production behind it. The case around it is 40mm stainless steel, 200 meter water resistance, unidirectional bezel, screw-down crown. Exhibition caseback. The Invicta Pro Diver retails on sale, and it is always on sale, for around $50 to $90. You are getting a Seiko NH35A automatic movement in a 200 meter diver's case for under $100. The brand name on the dial is the price you pay for the discount. If you can make peace with that specific transaction, the object is good, but the marketing behind the object is not. The Pro Diver is an extraordinary value proposition that the watch community argues about endlessly, and for good reason. Pause here. 7 watches, 0 junk at any of them. The next 5 are where the list shifts from entry to remarkable. These are watches that people in the community recommend before Seiko, before Swiss, before anything that costs more. Watches that prompt the sentence, "I stopped looking after this one." Which of the first 7 surprises you most? Drop it below. From polarizing to universally praised, Citizen's solar technology is the most underappreciated engineering achievement at this price tier. Number 6. Citizen Garrison Eco Drive. The Citizen Eco Drive technology works off a photovoltaic cell beneath the dial that converts any light, sunlight, office fluorescence, lamp light, into electrical energy stored in a rechargeable cell. The cell runs for 6 months in total darkness on a full charge. The battery never needs replacing. At $200, you are paying for a watch that is genuinely maintenance-free. No battery runs dead, no winding, no setting the time after leaving it in a drawer. Pick it up in November having put it away in May, and it is still keeping accurate time. The Garrison specifically delivers this technology inside a military-inspired field watch design. The inverted triangle at 12 o'clock. Large Arabic hour numerals for instant legibility. A 2-4-hour inner scale for dual time reading. A brushed stainless case. Brown calfskin strap with contrast stitching. The design language is early aviation watch. The kind of watch you see in 60s, photographs of pilots and officers who needed to tell the time and not worry about batteries. EcoDrive is accurate to within 15 seconds per month. The community consensus on the Garrison specifically is that there is no watch under $200 that costs less to own over 5 years. Because over 5 years, beyond the purchase price, it costs nothing. No batteries. No servicing for light-powered movements, which are simpler mechanically than automatics. No winding. No resetting after leaving it in a drawer. The Garrison is the definition of put it on and forget everything except telling the time. From zero maintenance to a piece of Japanese aesthetic philosophy disguised as a tool watch. Number 5. Casio Edifice EFR S108D Solar. The Casio Edifice EFR S108D retails for around $120 to $150. At that price, it has a solar movement, meaning the battery never needs replacing. It is 8.9 millimeters thick. It slides under a shirt cuff with the ease of a dress watch. It is 40 millimeters in diameter. The crystal is sapphire crystal, at $150. Sapphire rates 9 on the Mohs hardness scale. Diamond is 10. Rolex uses it. Omega uses it. Patek Philippe uses it. Most watches under $200 use mineral glass or hardlex, both of which scratch with daily wear. The EFR S108D uses sapphire at a price point where this should not be possible. The community's honest assessment. If you want a watch that can be worn against a suit sleeve every day for years without accumulating scratches on the crystal, and you want to spend as little as possible to achieve that outcome, the Casio Edifice is the rational answer. It does not have the heritage story of a Citizen. It does not have the mechanical movement appeal of a Seiko. It is the engineering, first answer to the question of what you want in a daily wear watch. Thin enough to fit under a cuff, powered by light, scratch-resistant crystal, accurate, reliable, and priced so that it competes with watches costing twice as much without trying. From Sapphire at this price to the watch that changed what dress watch under $200 means. Number 4. Orient Bambino, version 4 or 7. The first thing people say when they put the Orient Bambino on their wrist is, "This cannot cost what you said it costs." The domed mineral crystal catches light and throws it back differently as the angle changes. The automatic F6724 movement, Orient's in-house caliber, built at Orient's own factory, winds itself from the motion of your wrist throughout the day. The caseback is exhibition glass, showing the rotor. The leather strap is comfortable from the first wearing. The dial has a gradation that sweeps from a brighter center to darker edges, a finishing technique you do not typically see for under $200. Orient is a Japanese manufacturer that has been making its own movements since 1950. Owned by Seiko Group but operating independently with its own movement development, Orient is the brand that delivers genuine in-house automatic watchmaking at entry prices. The distinction matters. When most affordable brands say automatic movement, they mean a Miyota 8215 sourced from a Citizen subsidiary and installed in their case. When Orient says in-house, they mean the movement was designed by Orient engineers, assembled by Orient technicians, and carries Orient's own caliber designation. The F6724 has hacking seconds, a 40-hour power reserve, and is fully serviceable by any watchmaker who can work on Japanese movements. Seiko is better known. Orient is arguably the better value. The version 4 has the fuller dome, the rounder crystal profile that gives the dial that depth of field appearance, the sense that you are looking into the watch rather than at it. The version 7 introduces a small seconds subdial at the 6 o'clock position, a design element that splits collector opinion and gives the dial a different visual rhythm depending on your preference. Both versions of the Bambino are the undisputed nexus of the under $200 dress watch category. When someone asks, on any watch forum or any recommendation site, what is the best dress watch for this money? The Orient Bambino V4 is the answer more often than any other single model at this price. The Bambino's limitation: 30-meter water resistance, hand washing only. It is a watch for offices and dinners, not pools and oceans. The honest buyer who knows what they want it for will find nothing better. From dress watch to professional diver, Orient has answered both questions, which is unusual for one brand at this price. Number 3. Orient Mako and Ray 2. The argument for the Orient Mako 2 is contained in 3 facts. The movement inside is the Orient F6922 caliber, not sourced, not shared with another manufacturer, not a Miyota with an Orient label over it. Built in Orient's own factory in Japan, hacking in hand, winding, 22 joules, 40-hour power reserve. Orient developed it, Orient assembles it, Orient services it. When a brand says in-house movement at most price points, they mean a movement developed in-house but assembled from sourced parts. Orient means the whole thing. The water resistance is 200 meters with a screw-down crown and a properly unidirectional bezel that clicks through 120 positions. Not 100 meters, not 50 meters, 200. The same depth rating as the Seiko SKX007, which the watch community treated as a legendary diver until Seiko discontinued it. The same depth rating as the Omega Seamaster 300M. The same depth rating the ISO 6425 certification requires for a professional dive instrument. The retail price is between $120 and $160. The Mako community's phrase for this is forensic anomaly. One Reddit user coined it to describe how the combination of an in-house movement, 200-meter water resistance, and a price under $200 should not exist in 2026. The fact that it does means something interesting about what the Japanese watch industry is actually capable of when it is not trying to compete on prestige. The Rei 2 is the sister model with a cleaner dial layout, slightly more refined aesthetics, and a similar price point. The Mako 2 has more traditional diver character. Both are equally valid. Both are equally absurd value for what they deliver. From the Orient Diver to the watch that proves solar power is not a luxury feature. Number 2. Citizen ProMaster Diver, NI 0040 and BN 0150 on sale. The Citizen ProMaster Diver carries ISO 6425 certification. That is the international standard for professional dive instruments. It is the test that shows that the watch has 200 meter water resistance, anti-magnetic resistance, and shock resistance. It also shows that the watch has achieved luminescence standards that allow the watch to be read after 2 minutes in complete darkness. The test was developed so that diving safety organizations and military procurement offices could establish a minimum acceptable standard for instruments used in professional diving operations. Omega's Seamaster Professional 300M is certified to this standard. The Rolex Submariner is certified to this standard. The Tudor Pelagos is certified to this standard. The Citizen ProMaster Diver is certified to this standard. The Italian Navy has issued the Citizen ProMaster as standard equipment, not as a backup, not as a training watch, as the watch. The NY0040 is the automatic version, a Citizen-made caliber that winds from the wearer's wrist movement. The BN0150 is the EcoDrive version, solar-powered, battery never replaced, same ISO certification. In 2026, gray market pricing on both consistently dips below $200. Some gray market examples come in significantly below. At retail, the ProMaster runs around $250 to $300. The gray market is legal, well supplied, and well monitored with these watches. A buyer who knows to look will find one under $200 without much effort. The value argument here is specific and can be stated simply. The Citizen ProMaster Diver and the Omega Seamaster Professional 300M share an ISO 6425 certification. They share a 200 meter water resistance rating. They share a luminescence standard. The Omega retails for over $5,000. The Citizen retails for around $250. The price difference is entirely explained by the Omega charging for its movement architecture, its case finishing, its brand heritage, and its place in pop culture. The Citizen charges for the watch. One of them is a masterpiece of watchmaking. The other is the most honest purchase on this list, and the best under $200. A watch that the collector community consistently ends searches with, not as a compromise, but as the answer. Before we move on to the next part, let me tell you this. Most people don't realize this, but buying a watch the wrong way can cost you thousands, and you won't even notice it until it's too late. You walk into a store or browse online, and everything looks the same, but behind the scenes, there's a system. Prices aren't always fair, availability is controlled, and one bad decision can leave you overpaying for something that doesn't even hold its value. That's why I created a complete free insider guide to buying watches. Inside, you'll find the best watches to buy, the watches to avoid, and how to choose a watch that actually fits your style and budget long term. The goal is simple. I'll help you stop guessing and start buying smart. You'll find the free guide in the pinned comment and description. Now, let's move on to the next part. Number 1. Seiko 5 Sports SRP Series. The Seiko 5 Sports SRPD Series, the black SRPD 55, the blue SRPD 51, the Dress KX SRPE 55 retails between $150 and $250 depending on the reference. The gray market and secondhand market bring many into the under $200 range regularly. Inside is the 4R36 caliber. Unlike the older 7S26 found in previous Seiko 5 generations, the 4R36 has hacking seconds. The seconds hand stops when you pull the crown, letting you set the time to the second. It has hand winding, so you can top up the power reserve without shaking your wrist. It has 41 hours of power reserve, which means leaving it off your wrist for a full weekend will not drain the mainspring completely. It runs in the range of 10 to 15 seconds per day in normal use. This is normal mechanical watch accuracy at this price. It is not a flaw. Occasional resetting is the honest experience of owning a mechanical watch. The case is SKX inspired. The same proportions and spirit as the legendary Seiko SKX 007 that the collector community mourned visibly when Seiko discontinued it in 2019. The SRPD 55 is the SKX in character, with a better movement inside and a lower initial price. The exhibition caseback shows the rotor spinning with the motion of your arm. The rotating bezel is 120 click. Water resistance is 100 meters, with a solid crown that does not screw down but feels positive and secure. Drilled lugs on the case make strap changes straightforward. The watch is good, but here is the part that not many people know. The Seiko 5 Sports SRPD platform has one of the largest aftermarket modification ecosystems of any watch at any price on Earth. Not just in its price tier, at any price. Aftermarket sapphire crystal inserts that replace the hardlex, sourced from specialist suppliers for $25 to $40. Ceramic bezels in every color variation the original SKX ever wore. Hundreds of aftermarket dial options, sunburst blue, textured black, deep burgundy, color combinations the factory never made, each running $30 to $60 from the modding community. New handsets, chapter rings, every conceivable strap in every conceivable material, all fitting the 22mm lug width. The watch you buy at $150 can, through $100 of aftermarket parts sourced from the Seiko modding community, become a watch that looks like it came from a different manufacturer entirely. $250 total. Sapphire crystal, ceramic bezel, custom dial, mechanical automatic movement with hacking and hand winding, 100-meter water resistance. But the deeper reason the SRPD earns the top position is not the specifications. It is what the watch does to the person who owns it. The modding community is how a generation of watch enthusiasts learned what is actually inside a watch. Swapping a dial teaches you how the movement connects to the dial feet. Installing a new crystal teaches you what a gasket is and why it matters. Changing the bezel insert teaches you the difference between a loose 60 click and a solid 120 click. These are things you cannot learn by reading a review. The Seiko 5 SRPD is not just the best watch under $200. It is the watch most likely to turn someone who wears watches into someone who understands them. The gateway that, for most people who walk through it, becomes the destination. 12 watches. $18 to $200. One principle running through all of them. At every price point on this list, the watch earns what it costs because the object is what the brand says it is. The F91W is a genuinely indestructible watch that needs nothing from you for 7 years. The AE1200WH tracks 29 time zones with a 10-year battery for $25. The Mako 2 is a 200-meter in-house automatic for $150. The ProMaster genuinely carries ISO 6425 certification to the same international standard as the Omega Seamaster. The Bambino genuinely has an in-house movement that winds itself from your wrist motion and shows it through exhibition glass. No gaps between the story and the object. No movements that cost less than a lunch being presented as a caliber. No marketing claims that require the buyer to not know what they are buying in order to work. The list exists because the gap is real in this price tier, and it matters. There are watches sitting next to these recommendations on every shelf and every website that will take your $200 and give you a fashion brand's name stamped over a 50-cent circuit board, in a case that starts scratching before the third week. The marketing around those watches is excellent. The object is not. What I found doing the research for this list is that the watch community, the forums, the Reddit threads, the independent reviewers, is remarkably consistent. These 12 names keep appearing, not because of advertising, because people who own them keep telling other people who ask. That is the most reliable signal in any market. The summary, as simple as I can make it: Japanese engineering at this price tier routinely produces objects that Swiss engineering charges 10 times as much to match. This is not a criticism of Swiss watchmaking. The Swiss are charging for craft, history, and finishing that Japanese manufacturers are not trying to replicate at this tier. The point is that if your budget is $200 and your question is what works, the answers are almost all Japanese, and they are very good. Now you know where to look and what to look for. Drop it below. Which one of these is already on your wrist? Which one are you buying this week? I read every comment. Like this video and subscribe.